Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to try to unpack a story that's really heartbreaking and mysterious.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
We've got news articles, police reports.
Hmm.
We even dug up some court transcripts,
Wow.
trying to figure out, you know, what happened to this woman, Anna Repkina.
It's one of those cases that just gets you thinking, you know, about all the what ifs,
Yeah, for sure.
and especially about, how risky online relationships can be.
Exactly. So to give everyone the background, Anna Repkina was 27 years old from Russia.
Okay.
We know that she loves cats and travel and music.
Sounds like someone I would have gotten along with.
Uh-huh. Right. And she even worked at Ikea.
Ikea, really?
Yeah. And I know that might seem like a random detail,
Yeah, it kind of does.
but it might actually tell us something about her.
How so?
Well, as someone who works at IKEA, they probably like things to be organized and structured.
That's true. I never thought about it that way.
Right. And maybe that's part of why she was looking for a connection, like after her recent breakup.
Oh, so she was going through a breakup.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? To want someone there,
Yeah.
especially after losing someone important.
Yeah, definitely.
And so she ends up on this Russian social networking site
Okay.
where she meets this guy, William Hargrove.
William Hargrove.
Yeah, he's 26 years old from Oregon.
So they're from completely different worlds.
Exactly. And they start messaging each other like crazy, thousands of messages, video calls all the time.
Wow, must have felt like they knew each other.
I know, right? And they bonded over their love of music.
That's sweet.
It was like a total whirlwind online romance.
I can see how someone could get swept up in that, especially when it's long distance.
For sure, it's like you build this whole image of them in your head based on, their profile and what they tell you.
Right, it's easy to get caught up in the fantasy of it all.
Totally. And sadly for Anna, that fantasy led her to make a huge decision.
What did she do?
She flew all the way to Oregon to meet Will face to face.
Wow, that's a big leap of faith.
It really was, and unfortunately that leap of faith landed her in a nightmare.
Oh no.
On April 17th, 2017, they found Anna's body on this remote logging road.
A logging road.
Yeah, thousands of miles away from home.
That's awful.
And that location, it's not a place you would just stumble upon.
So you're thinking someone wanted her body hidden there?
It's a strong possibility, and get this, the person who found her was a caretaker walking his dog.
Really?
And he usually avoided that area. But on that day, something made him go there.
Wow, that's eerie, almost like fate, you know?
I know, it's chilling. And to make things even stranger near her body, they found a KFC bag and a receipt.
KFC, what does that have to do with anything?
I know it sounds random, right? But that receipt was dated April 14th.
So just a few days before she was found.
Exactly. And those items become super important clues for the investigators.
How so?
Well, they can use things like that to track people's movements, and figure out who might have been near Anna around the time she died.
Oh, I see, like connecting the dots.
Exactly. And in this case, those dots lead to a huge twist that turns the whole investigation upside down.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So remember how Anna left everything behind to be with Will?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out Will wasn't exactly single. Like he said he was online.
He wasn't?
Nope. He was also seeing another woman from Oregon, Michelle Chavez.
Oh, wow, so there's a love triangle.
Exactly. And it wasn't just a peaceful little triangle either. There was tons of tension and ultimatums flying around.
Really?
Yeah. Reportedly, Michelle gave Will a choice. It was her or Anna.
That's intense.
And get this, Anna's body was found just 2 days after this confrontation.
So the timing is suspicious, to say the least.
Right. So now we have a young woman far from home, caught in this love triangle,
Yeah.
and then the autopsy reveals that her death wasn't an accident. She was shot.
She was shot. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and that changes everything.
Completely.
Now it's not just a sad disappearance, it's a potential homicide.
Wow, so many questions. Who would do that? And why take her to such a remote place?
It's like something straight out of a crime show. And the investigators now have to figure out what really happened to Anna Repkina.
This is definitely more than just a love story gone wrong.
Absolutely. It's like they walked into a real-life episode of Law & Order.
And they had to start figuring out exactly what happened, like put all the pieces together.
Right. And that's where that KFC bag and that receipt becomes so important.
Oh, yeah, you were saying those were crucial clues.
Yeah, like suddenly something as ordinary as, grabbing some fast food
Right.
becomes this potential link in the chain of events. Because it could place someone at the scene or at least nearby around the time Anna died.
Right, it's like a breadcrumb trail.
Exactly. And this case is so complex. We've got the love triangle, obviously.
Right.
But there could be other motives, too.
Like what?
Well, maybe someone felt threatened by Anna. You know,
Threaten.
like they saw her as competition for Will's affection or even his money.
I see.
It's crazy how jealousy can make people do things they never thought they would.
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes those actions can have, really tragic consequences.
Definitely.
So the investigators had to look at everything, not just the people involved.
What do you mean?
Like, were there any financial ties between Will and Anna?
Oh, interesting.
Did anyone stand to gain something from her, disappearing?
Right, right.
It's all about following the money sometimes.
For sure.
And with a case this complicated, I'm sure there were a lot of dead ends and,
Roadblocks.
yeah, like people changing their stories or trying to throw the investigators off.
Oh, yeah. Definitely happens all the time.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing.
And some are from a completely different puzzle.
Uh-huh, exactly. And, we talked about how intense online relationships can be.
Yeah.
Do you think that played a role in how quickly things escalated in this case?
It's hard to say for sure, but it's definitely something to think about.
Because online, it's so easy to create this perfect version of yourself.
Yes.
And you might end up with these unrealistic expectations and this weird sense of intimacy.
Right. It's like you're falling for an idea of a person, not the actual person.
Exactly. And it can be dangerous when that online world collides with real life.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna's story is a tragic example of that.
And it makes you think, she traveled to a foreign country to meet someone she barely knew.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more vulnerable than that.
Right. And it's a situation that's ripe for manipulation and deceit.
It's heartbreaking.
So with all of these factors at play, how did the investigators even begin to narrow down the possibilities?
Well, they had to look at a few different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Like, was this a crime of passion, just pure jealousy and rage?
Mhm.
Or was it planned out in advance? Maybe someone wanted Anna out of the picture for some reason.
Right. And each scenario would require a different approach to the investigation.
Absolutely. They'd be looking for different types of evidence and asking different questions.
So they had to really analyze everything.
Brutal detail.
Every statement,
Yeah.
every inconsistency to see which theory made the most sense.
That's where things get really interesting.
We're going to dive into those theories next.
Okay.
Examine the evidence and try to understand how the investigators worked through this maze to try and uncover the truth about what happened to Anna Repkina. Okay, so we left off with a bunch of possible motives swirling around.
It's like trying to pick out the right thread from a tangled mess.
Right. So where do we even start? Crime of passion, or was it something more planned out?
Well, that crime of passion angle, it definitely makes sense in this situation.
Right.
Think about it. You've got this love triangle. Everyone's emotions are running high.
Yeah.
Ultimatums, jealousy, feelings of betrayal and rejection. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's like one wrong move and everything explodes.
Exactly. It's not hard to imagine things getting out of hand in a moment of passion.
Right, leading to something tragic and impulsive.
Right. But on the other hand, we can't just assume it was all about passion.
What do you mean?
The investigators had to consider the possibility that there was something else going on.
Like a more sinister motive.
Exactly. What if someone saw Anna as a problem,
A problem.
Or like she was standing in the way of their own happiness or their finances or something.
Oh, wow. So you're talking about a scenario where someone wanted her gone?
And they were willing to do whatever it took to make that happen.
That's terrifying.
And I remember she was found in a really remote area.
Yeah, you said it wasn't a place you would just stumble upon.
Right.
Yeah.
Which suggests someone was trying to hide her body.
So that points to premeditation, you're saying.
It definitely raises that possibility.
And if that's the case, the questions become even bigger.
Absolutely.
Who would have the motive? Who would have the opportunity to pull this off?
And did they act alone or did they have help?
It's like each answer leads to another question.
It's a rabbit hole for sure.
And don't forget about the cultural differences in play here.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Anna was from Russia, a completely different world than Oregon. So investigators had to deal with language barriers and cultural misunderstandings.
And potentially different expectations about how law enforcement works.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity to an already difficult case,
It really does. And it shows just how challenging it can be to get to the truth.
especially when you're dealing with conflicting stories and not a lot of physical evidence.
It's true. Sometimes the pieces just don't fit together neatly.
So it makes you wonder, even with the best detectives working the case, are there times when the full truth remains a mystery?
It's definitely possible that some cases will always have unanswered questions.
And that's a sobering thought.
It is.
So what about Anna's story? What can we learn from this tragedy?
I think it's a powerful reminder that the online world can be a dangerous place.
Dangerous.
Well, not dangerous in itself, but it's easy to forget that there are real risks involved.
Because it can feel so safe and anonymous online.
Exactly, and we might let our guard down.
Like we share things we wouldn't share in person.
Or we trust people too quickly.
And Anna's story shows just how badly things can go wrong.
It's a wake-up call to be cautious and to really take the time to get to know someone before we let them into our lives.
Especially if we're meeting them online.
Definitely. And I think it's also important to remember that behind every case file,
Yeah.
there's a real person with a real story.
And in Anna's case, it's a story that's both heartbreaking and thought-provoking.
It makes you think about the choices we make, the people we trust, and how precious life really is.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, let's remember Anna, not just as a victim,
Yeah.
but as a young woman with dreams and hopes who met a tragic end far too soon.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It's a story that stays with you and reminds us to be careful out there, to be kind to one another, and to cherish every moment.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time, stay curious.